I had to survive 200 days in ultra modded Minecraft. These are my goals. First, I want to defeat the Wither and make full crystallite armor. Then I want to defeat the last 2 bosses of mass destruction. After that, I want to beat the Blackstone Golem. And last but not least, I want to explore the rest of this world and the Aether dimension. Make sure you watch till the end to see this epic adventure. Day 101 to 103, I grabbed my fireworks, golden carrots, and potions of fire resistance to go collect Wither skeleton heads. I found a structure with a respawner statue and a nether temple, which I accidentally blew up while I was trying to collect the loot. For the rest of these days, I killed a ton of withers and this guy called the Wither Necromancer. What? That guy wasn't much of a challenge, and right after that I managed to kill this thing called the Restless Spirit, and then I finally collected my 2 wither skulls I needed. Day 104, I made potions of health, grabbed some milk, and teleported to an area to fight the Wither. In front of this mountain, I placed my soul sand and summoned the first boss of these 200 days. My power 5 netherite bow did some crazy damage while this guy was flying. The Wither was no match for me. Well, it was no match for me until his health got low and it came down and started doing some serious damage. I had to fly up and then drink my milk. Now that I was healed up, I came down and delivered the final hits to kill the Wither. After that, I picked up the Nether Star and flew over to the pirate ship nearby. I took down the pillagers on board and burned this entire place down. Day 105, I used most of my iron to build out the layers of a full beacon underneath my storage room. Then I placed my beacon in the center and chose to give myself speed 2 and regeneration. That night a blood moon happened, which means I couldn't go to sleep, so I spent the rest of this night killing a bunch of orcs and zombies until it was morning. Day 106 to 108, I needed a huge armor upgrade, so I made an endstone smelter and went to the end. I was there to collect a bunch of the new ores like amber ore, rothalacium, and even ender ore. Along the way I found an abandoned ship with some good loot. Then I found this crazy looking structure with an elytra wing just hanging around. I then picked this weird looking biome to mine in and got attacked by this thing called a shadow walker. I mined for the rest of these days and hit the mother lode of ender ore and rothalacium. Day 109, I found an end gateway portal and made my way back home. While I was traveling back home, I found another pirate ship and lit it on fire. I think I spent the whole day watching this thing burn down. So as soon as I got home, I smelted all of my rothalacium and turned my ender ore into ender dust. Day 110, I used the ender dust to make terminite ingots and turn the ingots into terminite forged plate. With that, I was able to make full terminite armor, but that's not even close to being the best armor. I still needed to do the infusion ritual. Day 111, I did the ritual to infuse crystals into my terminite armor and make crystallite armor. I even infused the elytra, but it took up a chestplate slot, so I just used the spare elytra I got from the end. These sets give regeneration, speed, and haste bonuses. Day 112, all the villagers were dying, so I took some of my best ones and put them in this small trading hall. This way I can get mending books way easier. I need them for the enchantment process. Day 113, I started enchanting my crystallite gear. First up was my perfect chestplate, then my leggings, and after that, my boots. I also put mending on each piece of armor and then began maxing out the enchantments on the Dark Enchanter. Next up was the helmet. Day 114 to 116, I completely ran out of XP, so I made some more fireworks and went to the nether. I was looking for these things called Pyrak. The only place I knew where to find them was in a nether mineshaft. They give so much XP, I literally got 10 levels in just a few seconds. I mined these guys for the rest of these days until I got up to level 36. I think that'll be enough for the enchantments. I then came back home, put all my gunpowder away, and began enchanting my helmet. I used a Dark Enchanter to max this bad boy out. Day 117 to 119, now that my armor was maxed out, it was time to max out my tools. I wanted to make dragon tools, and to make dragon tools you need regular netherite tools. I only had gilded netherite stuff. So I spent a few days with vein mining just chopping away at these netherrack. It was actually a lot of fun. I didn't even realize how long I was in the mines. I collected about 12 pieces of ancient debris and made my way back home. Day 120, I smelted my ancient debris, made some netherite ingot, and started making netherite tools. Then I used my dragon scales to make a dragon pickaxe, sword, and a bow. I then disenchanted all of my old gilded netherite gear and used that XP to enchant my new dragon gear. Even though it took all of my experience, I now had some of the best armors and tools in the game. Day 121 to 126, I placed more bookshelves down and went to put this gear to use by taking on some enemies. First up, I found this abandoned building with a skeleton on the door and took out the wither skeleton inside. I then found an abandoned house with some exotic fishes. Next up, I found a pirate ship which I easily manhandled and obliterated it with TNT and fire. Next to that ship was an even bigger pirate ship, but once again, that wasn't even a challenge. I easily took out the skeletons and burned this ship down. I had enough fun. It was time to go back home and prepare for an actual boss. Day 127 to 132, I grabbed my golden apples and went underground to look for a boss of mass destruction. The Void Blossom. This guy hangs out at the bottom of the world, so it took me forever to find where it was. Luckily, while I was looking for it, the boss bar showed up. I knew I was close. Day 133 to 136, I found the lair of the Void Blossom. I tried to stay on the high ground, but its attack sent me down to the ground. It's now do or die. I then drank my strength potion and got some great bow shots in, but this guy ended up burying himself and healing. It was using these spores to heal. Now I had even more to worry about. The next phase, it launched acid at me. What did I get myself into? After a few minutes of breaking these spores and doing some damage, I finally got its health down to the final phase. Then all it took was dodging its attack and getting some good hits square on its face. My reward was a ton of XP and this thing called a Void Thorn. I then went back home to prepare for the next boss battle, and this one's gonna be even harder. Day 137 to 142, last time I took these guys on, they almost killed me. The Nether Gauntlet was the hardest boss I've ever taken on. Before I found their lair, I explored this weird pipe-looking thing. Inside of it were these things called pipeline sentries. They were like blazes with like 10 totems equipped. One of them even shot lightning. What is happening? At least these guys had some pretty nice loot. Day 143 to 145, I saw one of the Nether Gauntlets that I ran from last time, but I'm way stronger now. Even then, these guys were still super overpowered and made me retreat pretty quickly. When I was retreating, I remembered one thing. If I got too far away, these guys just end up healing. So I came back in and took the fight to them. I realized that if I use my wildfire shield, it doesn't take any damage from their lasers. So from then on, I used my shield to full capacity, blocking all of its hits and lasers. As soon as they opened their eyes, I was able to do a ton of damage. Before I knew it, I was able to land the finishing blow on the Nether Gauntlet. The next gauntlet was a much simpler fight since I knew what to do. I thought I had it trapped in its area, but it managed to break out. At least I did a ton of damage before it decided to come up. I used the same strategy of blocking all of its hits with the wildfire shield, and it worked like a charm. I defeated this gauntlet way easier than the first one and took another blazing eye. Day 147, it was time to take on another boss, the Blackstone Golem. I needed 4 gilded Blackstone shard and a ton more Blackstone, so I went to the Nether to trade with a bunch of piglins. I got really lucky with the trades and got the gilded Blackstone shards really easily. It just took me forever to find where the piglins were. Day 148 to 151, it was time to do the ritual to summon the Blackstone Golem. I placed the 4 gilded Blackstone shards on the holders and waited for the Blackstone Golem to spawn. This guy was absolutely massive, and while I was trying to put some fire out, it knocked me off my ledge. I flew back around to fight the golem, but this guy was stuck in some really awkward area. I was getting a bunch of free hits in. I thought I was invincible until this happened. The golem launched me all the way up in the air, but while I was there, I just used my bow to whittle his health down. The golem was almost dead, so I jumped down and started slashing at it. And bad news, a lot of its loot fell into lava. At least I got to keep the Blackstone heart. I was able to make something cool. I used a Blackstone Golem's heart to make a Blackstone Golem arm. This thing is really cool. You can charge it up and launch blocks at things. Day 152 to 155, I realized the whole time I wasn't even equipping a totem. I then flew around to try and get the bad omen effect. I wanted to start a raid. There wasn't a captain there, so I just flew somewhere else. I found this cool little mushroom area where there was a ton of mobs because it was all shadow. Then while I was flying, I found a wizard's tower where I took their golden apples and found this little abandoned house. I couldn't find another pillager outpost, so in this swamp village, I just teleported home. Since I couldn't take on a raid, I made a cartography table so I could take the fight to the Woodland Mansion. After trading a bunch of emeralds to this guy and a bunch of glass, I unlocked the Woodland Explorer map. I also expanded the Woodland Explorer map to make it easier to find the mansion. While I was looking for the mansion, I found this cool mushroom village, and after more exploring, I found these crazy structures called the Thornborn Towers. The top of these towers all had spawners that spawned skeletons on top of phantoms. These guys were actually pretty easy to take down, there were just so many of them. I then flew over to the other towers and took out their spawners and also took their loot. Day 161 to 162, 23,000 blocks later, I finally found a woodland mansion. I drank my strength potion and went right in. I easily took out this first Vindicator, I took their pumpkins, and then killed more of these guys. Things were going a little too well. I was feeling invincible. That all changed when I moved over to the other side of the mansion. I got trapped in a room with 3 Vindicators, and these guys kept disabling my shield. My health was dropping really fast, so I had to keep running. I kept my distance and used my bow to take these guys out. And just like that, I'd taken down the first floor. For some reason, the second floor only had like 1 Vindicator. I then made my way up to the final floor to take this entire woodland mansion down. I took apart my first evoker in this mansion and swapped the void totem for a regular totem. Then I killed the last few remaining mobs in the woodland mansion. Luckily, there was a village right next to the woodland mansion that I used to teleport back home. Day 163 to 166, I wanted to see what a jungle fortress was. I then chopped down these trees and finally these pillagers showed up. Now I think I might be the most unlucky person alive. He died by the fire, so I didn't get the bad omen effect. I was so mad. I then turned all the wood into sticks and got a ton of emeralds selling those sticks. And I bred these villagers. This village was pretty empty, so I wanted to kind of fill it out before I took on a raid around here. I even built some defenses up. Hopefully 3 iron golem will be enough to defend this village, otherwise I'm screwed. And to end these days off, I made an automatic composter for a bunch of seeds that I had. Day 167 to 70, now that a bunch of stuff at home was taken care of, it was time to find this jungle fortress. I found another one of these weird mushroom structures, but this one was packed to the brim with these mushroom brutes. There was even more on the floor underneath. I broke these guys' spawner and all of them started coming after me. Killing them was actually really easy since they just line up in front of you, but they all splash potions of nausea at you. Then I went right back to looking for the jungle fortress. Thankfully, there was another pillager outpost and these guys actually had a captain, so I got the bad omen effect. Day 170 to 173, I followed the map all the way to this jungle fortress. This place was really weird. It was filled to the brim with drowns. It seemed like these guys would never stop spawning. I tried to turn the corner, but I was ambushed by hundreds of drowns. Even with the best armor, these drowns are doing a ton of damage. Thank God I had golden apples at the ready. I then broke away from the hordes of zombies and stayed on the outside shooting my bow. Once I cleared the path from all the drowns, I explored the rest of this jungle fortress. This place was cool, but it had some awful loot, so after exploring a little bit more, I decided to just get out of here. While I was coming back home, I saw this underground village. That's when I realized I still had the bad omen effect. I flew back up to the surface and defended this village from the raid. It's only been 2 waves, but this raid was really easy. I took out all these guys and one of these guys ended up dropping a horn. I had no idea what this horn did, so I just blew it. Turns out it actually ends up calling off the raid, so all the pillagers went back home and I flew back to my home. Day 174 to 175, I came back to my village and also blew the horn. That ended up calling a bunch of pillagers and I was able to start a raid. The first 2 waves of this raid was easily handled by the 3 iron golem, but once wave 3 came around, all of my golems were about to die. This is when the ravagers started coming in. I then finished this wave by taking down the last remaining witch. The next wave was somehow even easier since there was no ravagers there yet. I easily took out these random walking pillagers and then got ready for the next wave. This is when things were getting serious. More ravagers started coming in as well as a bunch of vindicators. This raid had already killed all of my iron golem and most of my villagers, so I had to put it to an end. I used the high ground as an advantage and took out all the rest of the pillagers. I then made a plan to take out the ravagers first, then all the ranged guys. But since my village had no other defenders, all these guys were focused on me. I was basically just training these ravagers all the way around until I could get a good shot on them. After I took out the riders, I flew over to eat my golden apple. My health was getting kinda low. Then it was time to go back in and defeat the bulk of the raid. I made sure to follow the plan and take out the heavy hitters first. Once the ravagers were dead, it was smooth sailing from now on. This was the last wave, so I had to make sure to not die, but these guys ended up doing not enough damage at all. The last 2 people left was this witch and this evoker, and once I took these guys out, I earned the title as the hero of the village. Day 176 to 180, I brought a farmer villager over to help repopulate the village. I then went to the nether one more time for another goal. I needed to kill a ton of piglins and grab a bunch of gold. I did this because I wanted a huge moth to spawn, a piglin beast. I don't even know how much piglins I actually killed. I spent a bunch of days just absolutely demolishing these piglins. I even found a piglin outpost where I took out every single person plus the captain. I guess the piglin beast just didn't want any smoke. While I was traveling, I found this cool dome-looking thing. So I made my way inside and checked out what this book said. Even if some of the words were scrambled, I could make out the words Nether Star. So I knew what my goal was. Because I'm really curious, I wanted to see what would happen if you actually gave this place a Nether Star. So I made my way to a Nether fortress and killed a ton of withers for the rest of these days. I wonder what this altar had to offer. I didn't want to have to fight the wither again, but I really want to see. Day 186 to 188, I flew over to another random location to fight the wither one more time. This fight is so much easier now that I have perfect armor and perfect tools. This guy was no match for me. Even when the wither started making his way down to do melee damage, I easily took it down. And after a few minutes of just swiping at this wither, it dropped the Nether Star I needed. It was time to see what that altar had to offer. I made more fireworks, drank some fire potions, and made my way to the altar. I got a rare achievement, but absolutely nothing changed. I just killed a wither for no reason. It says I upgraded the pedestal, but I don't know what to do. If you guys know in the comments, let me know. It didn't take my nether star, which is really good, so I used the nether star to upgrade my backpack. I have way more storage now. Day 189 to 194, I used my glowstone and water bucket to make an aether portal. This place was really weird, it was just a bunch of floating islands. Good thing I had elytra wings, so I went around to explore, and while I was exploring, I found this cool looking ore called ambrosium. After that, I flew around to look for any living things or any structures. I also checked to see if these clouds were solid objects. They were. They didn't even let you pass through. I found another ore called Zanite and finally saw another living being. Those guys were called blue sweats and this was an air bunny. I then heard there was an ore called gravitite underground, so I went looking for it and finally found a piece. I think all the armors and tools made from gravitite are just as powerful as diamond armor and tools. They just look cooler and the ores floated. On the way back home, I finally found a structure. I was getting really lonely, but again, it wasn't anything too good. When I made it back to my portal, I wanted to try one more thing. I wanted to see if you would take void damage from falling in the aether, so I jumped down. This was actually kind of scary since I had no idea what would happen, but luckily, it just teleports you straight to the overworld. Bad news, I have no idea where this place left me off, but there was a mushroom house, so I made my way inside and went to sleep. It took me a pretty long time to come back, because that was actually really far away. But I had a ton of good stuff I grabbed from the aether, so I used the gravitite to make a gravitite axe, shovel, and a gravitite hoe. They looked a lot better, so I made sure to also fully enchant them. Day 197 to 199, I used all of my quartz to make a sign celebrating 200 days survived. I know it looks like zoo, but I tried my best. Just like that, I'd survived 200 days. Make sure you watch the last 100 days and leave a like and comment on this video. Thank you so much for watching.